Where's Leon going? To the store. Where's Leon going? To see a doggy. Where's Leon going? To sleep. Hey everyone, it's GhostsOnHoliday, and I'm back with a tutorial on how to evil your resident. So, where is the Resident Evil series going next? I want to talk about that in this video. There's still a lot of mystery around the future of the series, but the most obvious thing is that there is a future. Resident Evil is doing better than it ever has, sales and popularity-wise. It is Capcom's best-selling series overall, and they have been releasing nothing but absolute bangers, and also Resident Evil 3 Remake, and also Resident Evil Village. Look, I'm glad if you like Village, but no big titty vampire mommy will stop me from thinking that this game is incredibly mid. But if you guys want more Resident Evil content, I will make a video reconsidering Village. But today, we're talking about another topic. More Resident Evil content. Specifically, new Resident Evil games. Mostly new. Remakes are kind of a gray area. So, knowing that the series is doing so well, we're definitely getting more Resident Evil games. What they could be, I actually think we know. We're probably going to get 3 things. Resident Evil 4 DLC, Resident Evil 9, and I'll say side projects, aka, what are they going to remake next? First on our plate is the idea of Resident Evil 4 DLC.
Got something new for you.
Will there be any? Yeah, probably. You think they're gonna make Ada that sexy and then not let us kick people's head off with her?
Looking for something?
The game has sold so well that I think it'd be foolish for Capcom not to capitalize on that and release DLC. They want that cheddar. We obviously got the Mercenaries as a free DLC because I feel like people would have rioted in the streets if we didn't get it for free, and rightfully so. It was in the original game for free, and if they didn't include it, that would just be kind of scummy. Data miners also broke into the game files and rifled around and found out that Ada and Daddy Wesker are in the game's files. And we even got some modders who kind of made like a half-functional version of them with some of the moves that you could play with, without their like powers thing that's in the new Mercenaries mode. So I definitely think we will get them in the Mercenaries down the road. I'd also like to see more new characters like they did with Luis. It'd be cool to play as more villains like we could in Village, you know, what they did with Lady Dimitrescu. And it would be just neat to play as Sadler, or the Chainsaw Guy, or the Big Cheese, maybe even Ashley? And she has like a power to transform into a rodent or something like that. I don't know, just throwing that out there. Hopefully the Mercenaries DLC is free, but I'm also not gonna hold my breath. Because like I said, like Ashley, Capcom wants that cheddar. Another data mine nugget was something called Another Order, which most people have theorized is probably the remake's version of Separate Ways. There's a lot in the main story to suggest that Ada is doing things behind the scenes, just like she was in the original. We've got the exploding tower in the village, Ada just kind of showing up and having extra scenes in the game, interacting with Luis, seeing things as she's moving around. I think they might have shown off less of her in the main campaign because of the emphasis that she's going to have in a side story. But I also think a lot of us just think there's more Ada in RE4 than there is because we've had the extra content with her from the original for like 20 years. So I think we will get to explore her side of things in the remake and maybe get even more story and lore like we did in this new game, and that's pretty exciting. And there's other things that the game kind of hints at too. Well, actually, maybe a lack thereof that hints at things. Like, where is the second Verdugo? In the original, the second Verdugo gets vored and combined with Salazar and then becomes his, like, mouth dick that fights Leon. In this game, Salazar just falls down to the ground and then becomes like a flying meat nugget sock puppet that attacks you. And the Verdugo is nowhere to be seen. My theory, and probably others, is that we're going to get to fight him either as Ada, or possibly everyone's favorite ladies' man, Luis. That's right, I think we might get DLC or even an inclusion of Luis in Ada's DLC. Luis throughout the game has a lot of implied actions. He constantly asks you to meet him places and then he's not there when you arrive, or hints at the fact that he's in trouble. You know, meet me in the courtyard, meet me in the ballroom, save me Prince Charming, yada yada yada. And not only that, but at the beginning of the game, he's captured. There's a lot of things that Luis does behind the scenes that we could explore. And if I were Capcom, I'd make Ada's story and the Mercenaries DLCs free, and then maybe charge extra for Luis's side story if it's going to be separate. I think that would be a way to make people less angry about the release of these DLCs. Or if they literally did make the Another Order campaign so much more fleshed out that it just justifies itself. That's another way. Plus, it'd also be really cool to play the cabin and mine section as Luis, and watch an AI Leon like flail around and be useless. Or it would also be funny if they just made it to where AI Leon whips out an unlimited rocket launcher and just fucking destroys everything. Also, just throwing this out there, Capcom, dog DLC. Where is it? I want to play as the dog from RE4. I really want to know what the dog was doing at the start of the game before we save him, and then what he does after. Does he get a bone? Does he do more anime jumping? I have to know. Hey, could we also get a like, comment, and subscribe DLC? Oh wait, you can get that for free underneath the video. That's crazy. You don't even gotta download or pay for anything. Anyway, I think that's all we've got as far as Resident Evil 4 DLC thoughts. I'm looking forward to it, of course, and I'd love to be able to play more Resident Evil 4. I already have over 130 hours in it now. More on that later. So, what's next on the list? New games, hopefully. Where's Leon going? To a cave. Where's Leon going? To the dance. Where's Leon going? To the void. Resident Evil 9. This one is like unknowable. I'm hitting up my scrying orb, trying to see the future here. Some leaks from Dusk Golem, who's a pretty reliable leaker on Twitter, has stated that the game's working title is Resident Evil Apocalypse. This implies a big event, the end of the world, which of course we've all seen in the Resident Evil universe before, in the movies. I mean, I haven't seen it. Someone has. I didn't watch those movies except for like the first and the second one. Nemesis is in it, and he looks like someone put on the big head moded cheats. I'll also comment that like 99% of leaks on Resident Evil 9 are probably just absolute bullshit. Here's a leak for you. I got this from a reliable source. Resident Evil 9 will feature Chris and Leon, and they give each other a big kiss, and they're in love and they get married. I spoiled the whole game for you guys. I'm sorry, Capcom. Please don't sue me. We also got a drop from Golem that they want to drop numbered titles from Resident Evil after 9, and this makes absolute sense to me. If you remember, Resident Evil 7 was essentially a soft reset. I think naming the past two games with subtitles like Biohazard and Village is prepping people for the eventual removal of numbers. You know, they're incorporating the numbers in the words, but it also just kind of gets rid of the number in a way. It hides it. I imagine if they do a big reset, I said doo-doo, we'd finally see some big character deaths. I know a lot of Resident Evil fans would have meltdowns at even the thought of a major character death. I see some people online who seem to think that they would like to play as Leon and Chris until they are senile, shitting their pants in wheelchairs. Without numbered entries, I think we could do a much more, like, side-pleasing thing where we'll have entries with our classic heroes and entries with new heroes at the same time. If they want to go for the whole Call of Duty thing where each year they have a new Resident Evil game, they could really get crazy with it. There was already some plot setups for things at the end of Resident Evil Village 4-9. Spoilers for Village if you haven't played it. At the end of Resident Evil Village, we find out that the BSAA, aka the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, that's a fucking mouthful, has begun using BOWs to fight other BOWs. BOW, by the way, means bioorganic weapons, which is basically every monster and enemy in the Resident Evil series from the very beginning. Zombies are technically BOWs. At the end of Resident Evil Village, the BOWs that the BSAA are using are basically zombies that can shoot guns. Chris used to work for the BSAA in Resident Evil 5, so he immediately foams at the mouth and says, "We gotta go to the BSAA headquarters right now and just fuck them up." Of course, the Rose DLC looks like it takes place like years after this. Even if they do a whole she grew up really fast because she's a mutant thing, it'd still have to be a few years after Village, I think. So I have no idea when 9 will take place if this BSAA event actually happened. It's kind of confusing with the Rose DLC. Like, there's so much that could be done in 9, but as we know with Capcom, They just kind of do whatever they want and then take from the past what they want to use, so we'll see. There's also just a lot of cool, deep history and lore that could be used. Like, I love the fact that since RE4, it's been established that basically BOWs have been around long before Umbrella. You know, the Los Plagas, these mold creatures, like, all of this has been around apparently for hundreds of years in these different cultures. So, I don't know. I'm interested to see how Resident Evil 9 plays out. I love to see more interesting BOWs to fight besides zombies or ganados. I didn't particularly love the enemies in Village, but I do like seeing the developers and artists really stretch their creative muscles and limits. This series has done so many weird monsters, and I feel like there's just this universe of more weird monsters that they could do, and honestly, that's one of the reasons I love this series. Hey, this is me recording this after I'd already recorded everything else. I just wanted to say some other things I would like to see with Resident Evil 9. It would be really cool to see first person and third person both in the same game, having sections where you play third person maybe as older characters and then first person as a new character. Less of a focus on what they did in Resident Evil Village with this trying to do everything and more of a core focus, at least on segments. You know, if the first person was going to be more horror focused and the third person was more action focused, and keep them kind of separate, because I feel like Villages like throw everything in there. Didn't work for me personally. And I would also like to see weapon progression focused more like they did in Resident Evil 4 Remake and the Resident Evil 2 Remake, because I didn't like Village's weapon progression. The pistol and the shotgun, whenever you get a new pistol or shotgun, it makes the previous one just completely useless. And I personally don't like that. I like it when the weapons are all useful throughout and just have different strengths and weaknesses even as you upgrade them. I think that makes them more fun. It makes you have more playstyles for different players. And of course, I would love to see a return to more of a horror focus, more like Resident Evil 7, more like the Resident Evil 2 remake, but something brand new. I really love Resident Evil 7 because it did something old but different with the way the monsters are, and in this house, and the setting being like familiar but unfamiliar because of the Southern Gothic. There's a lot that they could do with Resident Evil 9 that I think could be a lot of fun. I think it would be fun to have more folklore monsters. Just make them a little less annoying than Village's monsters. And speaking of things that could be done, I think we're probably going to get more remakes. Resident Evil remakes and side projects. Yeah, we all knew this was coming. The remakes have been doing gangbusters for Capcom, so of course they're probably going to keep doing them. There's also side projects like Outrage, but there isn't really much we know about that other than they're probably still working on it. So yeah, remakes. We're in the age of remakes. Some people hate it, some people love it. I think they're fun and they don't ruin the original, so that's cool. I do want Capcom to make the original games, like Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 on the PS1 and whatnot, more readily available. I know me and many others would pay like $5 to $10 to play these original versions on software like Steam's or even on consoles digitally. Alright, tier list time. That's right, we're doing a tier list. We're going to go with most likely to be remade, might be remade, not likely to be remade, and definitely won't be remade. That's our criteria for this tier list. First off, Resident Evil 5. Instantly going in, most likely. RE5 is still one of the best-selling games in the series, even though I think this game would be really hard to remake. The location would create some social problems for Capcom, no matter how you feel about it. That's just the way it is. If they don't make it co-op like they did original, I think people would be really upset about it. I think they could definitely make it more horror-focused and just make it really fun. And I hope they'd like fix some of the design problems that the RE4 remake had and the original RE5 had as well. But if they did focus on things like Chris's relationship with Sheva and how hard it was to lose a partner and not wanting to become attached to this new partner, as well as like his whole thing with Wesker, I think the story could be redone and be really good. Plus, just imagine how hot Sheva and Chris are going to be. God damn. Can't wait to call Sheva's name out 1,000,000 times and stare at her beautiful face. Next, Resident Evil 1. Yep, I think this is very likely. It got remade once, but I think there's already a market for it to be remade again. I've seen so many people talk about it online. I think Capcom would do it for nostalgia sales, and I've seen people talk about it and just say, yeah, I want this. I think this game would be difficult to remake considering it takes place in that one central location, but if they kind of handled it the same way they did the RE2 remake, it could be really cool. They'd also have to work out new, younger designs for everyone. They could work the plot to be a bit more personal as well. Let us get to know certain characters more, let us engage with it, up the writing just a little bit. We could get an alternate costume for Jill dressed as a sandwich, it'd be great. I think it'd be cool to see how they handle the new boss fights and see what additional content they might add or even take away. It would have to be different enough from the original and the remake to really justify it, so I think it would be really neat. And yeah, I wouldn't mind a third Resident Evil 1, as weird as that is to say. Resident Evil 1 3. Next, Code Veronica. I actually haven't played this game, and I need to. I sadly think this just might get remade. Even though Code Veronica is important to the lore of the series, I think a lot of what is established in it they could get away with ignoring. It's very well liked by the fan base, but broadly it doesn't have as much appeal to so many other games that they might want to remake. A lot of people back then did not play it, and it had some annoying mechanics and weird character choices. You know, Steve's basically a meme.
Yeah! Help me! Steve?
But I think it'd be really cool to see the origin of Catboy Wesker again. I think this game could easily be skipped, like I said earlier, because a lot of the lore-intensive stuff that is added in this game could just be rewritten in later parts. But we'll see. I am actually hopeful because I think it could be cool to have a remake of this game, to see what they could add lore-wise to make it even more important. I'd also love to see more of Claire, see more of, like, formative, the way she becomes the Claire we know, more of Chris, to see Rockford Island in HD and all of the enemies redone and these amazing modern graphics. I think it would be really cool. The Outbreak series. Another part of the series that I really need to play. This is a very well-loved part of the series. They're side games, but they were actually really good. A lot of people love them, and I'd even say that a lot more people like Outbreak than they do Code Veronica. They aren't essential to the lore by any stretch of the imagination, but they were really well-made games for their time if you asked anyone who played them, and I would even say that they were ahead of their time, and if remade properly, it could be one of the best co-op horror experiences that we could have along with Resident Evil 5. I'm sad to say that I don't think they're likely to be remade, but I would love it if they would be remade. There is already so much there, too, with Outbreak File 1 and Outbreak File 2. I think this is the side series that is the most likely to be remade overall, so I'm going to, even though I said it wasn't likely, I'm going to put it in maybe, just because I think it would be really cool. Let me be hopeful. Operation Raccoon City and Umbrella Corps. This is a fucking meme. There is no way, shape, or form I think they'll remake either of these games. Barely anyone played them. They were broken, buggy messes. Umbrella Corps just was not fun. It had this over-the-camera thing that was like right up your asshole. Raccoon City was a fun idea, and it just ended up being a giant pile of doo-doo shit. Neither of these will be remade. I think Capcom would actually like to forget these exist, and the only reason they keep selling them is because they make a little money from people who get interested and really into the series like me. One day I'll replay Operation Raccoon City. I have it on the 360. Next, Resident Evil Survivor and Dead Aim. I think technically these are part of the same series, and these games are very interesting. I actually haven't played them, but I've watched them be played before. I do not think it is likely to get remakes of these games at all, but it would be cool. If anything, I'd like to see them be re-released to just get easier access, like I said about the first three. By the way, Dead Aim had this really cool fake Limp Bizkit Linkin Park-like music in the background during the trailer, and I wanted you guys to hear it. And also, I could only find a Gun Survivor trailer that was like 240p, so my bad. We've already got a sort of like first-person mold for the series that these could fit into with Resident Evil 7 and Village. So it would be cool to see them and more first-person Resident Evils in the future. Again, I don't think it'll happen, but it'll be cool. So I'm going to put it in not likely. And last but not least, the last thing I can really think of is Resident Evil 0. I don't think they'll remake this, or at least anytime soon. They definitely do 5 or 1 first. I think 0 could use a remake. It isn't awful by any stretch of the imagination, but it has a lot of flaws. The item system was clever but annoying, especially later in the game, and there are some parts that were just kind of goofily difficult. I think they could even make it co-op, especially if they did like an RE5 remake and had that system established. Plus, the leech guy in the dress was silly. I think they could remake him, but I mean, it's very Resident Evil. Like, of course, actually, there's also Resident Evil 6, and I think it could use a remake, but like 5, it'd be a lot of work, and I just don't think it would make sense to remake it right now, especially with 4 just coming out. I think there's a lot more that they could do, and 6 would just be way more work than even 5. There's like 4 campaigns there, and just they'd have to rewrite like the whole thing. I just don't think it's gonna happen in that way. Anyway, that's the video. I think Resident Evil has a really bright future. I'm GhostsOnHoliday, and remember that BOW just doesn't have to mean bioorganic weapon. It could also mean beloved old woman. So, you know, call your grandma, and if your grandma's dead, I'm sorry. Much love, and happy whatever day of the week it is. Bye-bye.